All right, guys, let's talk about changing the narrative on certain players. I was thinking about Karl Anthony Towns in relation to the NBA Finals recently, and if you were to rewind the tapes to last year, this was a guy who everyone thought could not anchor a defense, was not a player who was capable of playing championship caliber basketball, was a bit of a selfish offensive player, talented, but wasn't really fitting into how championship offenses run. And you fast forward, and they're now one win away from winning the NBA championship. And you could argue that Karl Anthony Towns has been just as important to their success this postseason as any other player on the Cavs. He was their offensive hub against the Hawks, against the 76ers, at part times against the Cavaliers. Wemby's taken him out of the equation, and who doesn't Wemby erase from the offensive equation? But it got me thinking, if Cat can change the narrative in 12 months from someone who doesn't look like he could be a championship player to a player on the precipice of winning a championship, which Cleveland athlete do you guys think can change their narrative the most when we come back June 12th, 2027? G, start us off.
This is an obvious answer. I could have went with a lot of them, but I mean, you gotta say Shedeur Sanders. It's the most obvious answer because right now there's a lot of people who don't naturally believe that he's a guy that could be a franchise quarterback. There's some people who have already penciled in that they're going to have another quarterback. We've heard that the quarterback, whoever the Browns quarterback is of the future, is not on this roster. Now, the reason he has the most to gain is because I think when you look at his name and you look at the way people perceive him outside of Cleveland, a lot of the media and a lot of people who do it for a living may not think so. But there's a lot of fans. There's a lot of people. There's not very many people that are in the middle on Shedeur Sanders, right? And so the thing that we look at is he has an opportunity if he does win this quarterback job. The first thing he has to solidify is if you tell me that Shedeur Sanders started 17 games, that puts him in a different perspective because that means he started 17 games. That means he wasn't injured.
Stayed healthy. Yep.
Stayed healthy. He played well enough not to have backups in the game, and he played well enough to keep a guy in Deshaun Watson that Todd Monken has said, well, I think he could be back and he could possibly be playing at the starting level. So if he does all of that and you tell me he's played 17 games, I feel like that puts him in a perspective of he's competitive, he's putting production up, and he has the runway. And the more you go and the more you're out there and the more you're out there and the more people get an opportunity to see you, if the Browns are competitive, if the Browns are scrappy, if the Browns win games that they aren't supposed to, all of those things can change people's minds. It's hard to change people's minds right now because it's a prove it, it's a show me. So, but when the games start, I think it's much more easier to be the captain and Duke of New York when guys are out there throwing the ball.
I think it's a strong answer. I think it's one of the obvious ones when you think about this question, Garrett, and I think it fits because if he's going to change the narrative, then that's going to change the direction of the whole thing. Yeah. It is assumed, and now you can't assume anything in the National Football League, right? Unless you got Josh Allen or Pat Mahomes, right? But it is assumed that the Browns are headed to 27 on another quarterback search, right? It is assumed that the long-term future of the franchise is not on the roster right now, is not on the practice field. This spring or coming up in a few weeks. So Shedeur does have that opportunity. I think he's the answer if you give this question a Browns answer because I don't think that Deshaun can do enough. I don't think he's capable, and I think the way it's gone the first 4 years, I just don't think the situation is conducive to that. So if the Browns are going to change the way most of us think that they are headed organizationally, then it would be Shedeur winning the job, keeping the job, thriving, or maybe not even that, succeeding to some level, and then changing that whole direction.
Yeah, keeping a job is big. Like we've seen, you write all the time. 4 quarterbacks a year we play.
Yeah,
everybody's gonna get a chance to play. If you end up, Taylor Green.
Who's the last Browns quarterback to play a full season? Was it Baker?
Yeah.
Yep, and that was a playoff season.
So there's been 12 starters over the last 9 different guys and 12 starters over the last 3 years. And 12 times since 1999, they've had at least 3 starters in a year. I mean, when Joe Bitonio just retired the other day, he blocked for 22 different starting quarterbacks, and that's not all the guys that played in that time. That's who started games that Joel started.
Wow.
As you were talking about Deshaun and his ability to change the narrative, I do think he would have to play so well, like to an astronomical level of in the MVP conversation, not winning an MVP, to change his narrative, that the likelihood of that happening is just so thin that I think Shedeur, if you're looking at the two quarterbacks, is more likely to actually have an outcome where we look at this situation and say, they have their quarterback.
I agree.
And they could use those picks next year on a Jeremiah Smith or a Jordan Seaton or a Colin Simmons or a Dylan Stewart or some of the other players in this really talented draft. But if you wanted to go a non-Browns answer, I think you could take your choice of about 7 different Cavaliers. You can look at the team in totality. You can look at Kenny Atkinson. You can look at Donovan Mitchell, who's yet to win a game in the conference finals. You can look at James Harden, who's had his ups and downs in the playoffs. But I think the number one answer for this, to me, if we're going in the Cavs direction, I would pick Shedeur, but go a little different, would be Evan Mobley, who for the last 3 years we have sat up here and said he has to be the best player for the Cavaliers to take that next jump and win a championship. And he's gotten to a point that he's a really good player in the NBA, but he's still not better than Donovan Mitchell. And I think that's part of the reason why they've yet to win in the conference finals. They haven't been in that championship contention level because Evan hasn't taken that next step as an offensive creator, as an offensive playmaker, as an offensive hub to take some of the pressures off the rest of the guys that surround him. But if we were to fast forward the clock to this time next year and the Cavs are playing in the NBA Finals, hopefully they're up 3-1 on a team as opposed to being down 3-1. A big reason for their success would have to be Evan Mobley taking that next step forward as an offensive creator. So I think if you're looking for a Cavs answer here, you can go with Harden, you can go with Mitchell, you can go with Kenny Atkinson, you can look at the Cavs as a team. I think Mobley's the one that would have the best chance of actually flipping the switch, taking that next step, which I'm not even sure exists, but I think it's more possible than some of the other options you have.
I got one and only one pushback on Mobley being the choice for the Cavs.
Shoot.
Are we sure he's going to be on the team?
Great pushback. I can't say with confidence. I think he will be.
I kind of think he will be too.
I can't say with 100% confidence he'll be back.
But this is just how I look at the Cavs right now, is in one simple realm. There's no way you can run back this roster. Who has the most trade value? It's Evan Mobley.
I'm with you, man. But I was talking with McNuggets, and the more and more they get away from the season, I think there's a possibility that they could be delusional. Like when you get in the echo chamber over there and you start telling us about the analytics and guys not having a chance to acclimate James Harden into the mix, I'm over there looking like, don't you do it. Don't you talk yourself into this, because one of the guys you could look at is Donovan Mitchell, and it could be either good or bad.
Yeah, he could elevate in both ways.
He could elevate, be like, well, he fell off a little bit, because I don't think as constituted, I don't have them going back to the Eastern Conference Finals. I just don't have it. So you could come away from 2027 thinking of Donovan Mitchell in a lesser version than you do actually now. Now, for me, I look at it, and I just thought about this while you were talking. I would be anxious to see what your stats would say with this. For smaller guards and guys that utilize their athleticism, I like to look at how many explosive plays they have. Donovan Mitchell used to be a high flyer. I would love to see how many dunks, the total amount of dunks he got.
I can tell you, hold on.
Because that is a precursor to me of hitting missteps, where it's like it's almost like, velocity rate when guys are batting. So it's like your exit velo is not high. So if you're going down 5-10 miles per hour, I want to see where Donovan Mitchell, because I just feel as if he has less explosive plays at the rim, which is a telltale sign to me that he's taken a small step back, and those things can actually tell you whether or not, hey, is he on the decline a little bit? So you definitely need some work.
Yeah, his dunks have gone down. He did talk about during last season trying to save his body for the playoffs. It didn't necessarily work because he was still banged up and hurt in the playoffs. This most recent season, he jumped up in efficiency at the rim, but 2 seasons ago, and I talked about this is when they lost to Indiana, his efficiency at the rim had cratered. It went from in like the 60% to down to like the 52%, which in a percentile basis was, and I don't remember the exact numbers, but around 85 to about 55. And we've talked about it at length. Donovan is an explosive athlete when he chooses, but part of the reason he keeps going to this gather windmill step is he's trying to save his body And he's not the same athlete at the rim, so he's gotten so much better and so much more
Crafty.
reliant and crafty on that mid-range game, as opposed to getting all the way to the cup, as opposed to getting to the basket and finishing at the rim. There are changes to Donovan's body. It's getting older. He's entering his 10th NBA season. He plays like a running back, or at least early in his career, played like a running back, running into the line of scrimmage and absorbing that contact with how often he was able to finish at the rim in the early stages. And it is a fair question, not valuable, but a fair question of how will his body translate into the later stages of his career. He's a good enough shooter that even if he's not the same level athlete,
Right.
he's not going to just fall off a cliff. But he may not be the same Donovan Mitchell we've seen over the last couple of years if he doesn't have that same level of athleticism.
So when I think about this, if it's not Mobley, it's not Mitchell, it's maybe Harden, right?
Yeah.
On who can change. But then I wonder, and these are different people, they're very different careers, but is Harden almost like Deshaun Watson in this discussion in that maybe we're too far down the road and he just can't change the narrative about him?
Yeah.
He's not the one anymore, which I feel like the narrative on Harden is if he's your
That's
best
true,
guy,
right.
he can't. But also, he has his playoff struggles. Like, not every playoff game's been a dud. He's had some really, really good playoff games to start his career. But playoff Harden narrative is real. And it raised its ugly head again in this playoff
That's
run.
right.
So
It
could change. I'm not sure if he can completely erase the past.
I don't think that he has the ability athletically. The thing that was glaring to me was the bringing the ball up, turnovers, guys he not being able to blow past people, not being able to get to the paint. So for me, I even think James Harden is probably your 3 on a championship team. He's not a 2 anymore.
He's got to be a point guard. He can't be the isolation scorer James Harden
Yeah.
once was. He needs to be a point guard.